Wanted to see what would grow and what wouldn't grow. We're at about 2,900 feet. It was actually a greater revelation.
Somehow I think our Father has a purpose in all of this. One of his purposes is to keep us in the Word.
But what we're trying to show people is that they can actually do this. And I know they can because we're doing it.
Number two, Islam will be defeated, but there will be a cost. There will be a cost. You can't have half a dozen 9/11s and earthquakes and tornadoes like Katrina and all the rest of them happen in quick succession and not bring a nation down.
Yeah, those collapse the economies.
Yes. It will totally collapse not only the American nation, the United States, it'll collapse the Canadian economy, it'll collapse all the economies. Because when the US economy goes down, guess what? That's an earthquake on the planet. So everyone's going to feel it. Everyone's going to feel it. So there will be a cost. And there has to be. This is the plan of the enemy to get us to a one world order. And all these are the plans of the enemies to get us to a one world order. And God is allowing it to happen. Why did I say he's allowing it to happen? Why is God in his love allowing all these things to happen? To wake us up, to bring us to our knees so that we will turn our eyes upon him. So Islam is defeated, Daniel 8 verse 5. And as I was considering suddenly a male goat come from the west across the surface of the whole earth. Now remember, this is an end time prophecy. How could this have ever been fulfilled in the past? A power from the west comes across the surface of the whole earth. Not talking about halfway across the Mediterranean now. Across the surface of the whole earth in the time of the end. So how do we apply these little pictures of what's going on? Goat being, in an end time application, has to be the United Nations. It's a multitude of nations. And it has a notable horn. If I was to ask which nation is actually doing its own thing, dictating its own policy to the globe, who would you say that was? I know that if you live in Canada, you would say the United States, but we have people in the United States that are listening. Would you admit that the United States, it's doing its own thing in the world?
Yeah.
It's running its own policy. It's going above and beyond what the United Nations is saying, and it's actually leading a charge. Would you Americans admit that? How about you Americans? Will you admit that? Okay, yes. The United States, from their perspective, is doing what they need to. From a human standpoint, I would say they are doing exactly what intelligent human beings would do. I just wish they would actually see it and read it in here, and they might make a few changes in what they're doing. But they are leading the charge against Islam. Russia is not. China is not. They're selling to Islam. But the United States is leading the charge against radical Islam because they know where radical Islam is going, because they have the religious leaders that are helping the government understand these things. That's the difference between Russia and China. That's why the United States is at the front of confronting radical Islam. Okay, so we see the defeat of Islam, Daniel 8:6. Then he came to the ram that had two horns, Islam, Sunni, and Shia. This is the combined Islam, 1.5 billion strong, which I had seen standing beside the river, ran at him with furious power. And, we look at the wording of this. The West runs at him with furious power. Obviously, Islam has done something drastic. And my understanding is they will let loose on a worldwide scale. They will let loose on a worldwide scale. And too late, we will come to realize is that all those arms and all that wealth that we let them have or let them build up is going to be used against us. And they will do what they need to do to put Islam to bed. Now, what do you think that they need to do? Especially if they get nuclear weapons. We know that some Islamic nations already have nuclear weapons. So it looks like Iran will probably have nuclear weapons before this is over. It looks like Saudi Arabia may have nuclear weapons before it's over. If they think that it's war and bloodshed that brings on the reign of Allah, do you think that they'll use those nuclear weapons? Absolutely. So if they use nuclear weapons, then the West will have to use nuclear weapons. It's going to reach that kind of scale. A ballistic missile can carry a nuclear weapon. That's why they want ballistic missiles. They don't want nuclear arms. They just want the equipment that can carry them. You know, we don't talk about getting nuclear arms. We just talk about ballistic missiles. They want to fill it with firecrackers or something. Yeah, right. Okay, so yeah, that's why they want the ballistic missiles, because they will carry a nuclear weapon, and they will carry it a long distance, because that's what you need. Okay, so it says here that he runs at him with furious power. Daniel 8:7 says, and I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, broke his two horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground, trampled him, and there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand. So this is a complete annihilation of the ram, which is Islam as a whole. The two horns that control the ram are said to be the kings of Media and Persia, and that's the Middle East. Islam is a lot bigger than the Middle East. Indonesia, 250 million Muslims strong in Indonesia. That's amazing. And there's Muslims all over the globe, but the Middle East are the ones that control Islam. That's where they take the call from. Mecca and Medina, of course, in Saudi Arabia. So here we say, once the two horns of Islam could be looked at as Sunni and Shiite, or the kings of Media and Persia, which were spread over the whole Middle East. Once they unite, there will be war between the Western powers. Greece, which is the beginning of the West in geography. You can see that. It's the beginning of the West, and it's where Western civilization had its beginnings. So God, using Greece as a code, if you were, for the West, really has a big part to play in this as well. It actually makes sense. And Greece is right on the edge of the Middle East, so it would be where they would stage attacks from as well. And this is how military works. It gets as close as it can to the enemy without being destroyed. And Greece will, I believe, as a nation, will be very much involved in the Middle East. They were coming from the south through the Persian Gulf, but if all Islam unites, you can see in the little picture there of the Middle East, the kings of Media and Persia in green. Basically, that's kings of Media and Persia. If they all unite, they won't be able to come up through the Persian Gulf. They won't be able to come from that direction. It says they come from the west across the surface of the whole earth, and Greece will play a major, major part in this here. And we can see this on this slide. They come from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground, which would mean that they're not coming by land, they're coming by air or sea, right? Or missile. You know, they have intercontinental ballistic missiles they could actually deliver from the United States. So here we see the prophecies are saying. So let's go back to the question. To answer the question earlier, we've seen wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes, and so on. My personal belief is Yeshua was pointing us back to Daniel so that we would know the exact war that begins the time of the end. So yes, we've had wars and rumors of wars, but we've never had a war against the West and the kings of Media and Persia. We've never seen a power come across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground and attack the kings of Media and Persia. I believe the war that he spoke about in Matthew chapter 24 is the kickoff event to begin the time of the end. That's what it seems to indicate. So we don't need to be, well, what war is it? We know what war it is. It's the sons of Ishmael against those that claim to be the sons of Abraham. If you are Christ, you're Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. This is the long time. This is the 4,000-year conflict coming to the surface. This is what we have here. This is not just any war. This is the sons of Abraham. This is the war that Yeshua spoke about. The sons of Abraham. Okay, so let's enemy among us. Islam being defeated sounds like good news at first, but in the U.S., the latest Pew numbers, these are polling numbers in 2017, show the country is home to an estimated 3.45 million Muslims of all ages. The Atlantic Journal-Constitution, May 2019. Poll of U.S. Muslims revealed that 12% said that murder, these are really nasty numbers. Poll of U.S. Muslims revealed 12% said that murder is often or sometimes justified in order to further their religion. Ouch. These polls are supposed to be accurate. 12% of 3.45 million Muslims equals 414,000 local Muslims, local as in on the western side of the world. Local Muslims who think the use of violence to promote their religion is justified. How comfortable do you feel? Seriously, is that a big number?
Yeah, huge.
Yeah. That's on North American soil. That's where we live. That's what this means. Only if only 1% of these actually committed terrorism in the United States after the U.S. goes to war with the Middle East, that would be an army of 4,140, averaging 83% per state. So I was just dividing it up among the states just to throw out some numbers.
If only 1% is radical.
Right, if only 1% is radicalized. Now there's been estimates done from good sources that say that up to 30 to 40% of those Muslims are radicalized. They just don't voice it. So now the numbers change 30 to 40 times this number. Yeah, so that's huge. Now this is why I say that the largest Trojan horse has been delivered worldwide. They've welcomed these people in. Canada has welcomed these people in. Still is welcoming these people in. So they're getting in position, and it doesn't take, and the point here is it doesn't take very many. And I don't know what you believe about the World Trade Center or whatever, but the estimates are it only took 15 men to bring those down. There's a few people behind the scenes, but let's just do this on a larger scale and have World Trade Center events of that type happening all over the place. Every major city. Every major city. You can see easily that's going to take the nation down. If they do this worldwide, it will take the world down. Will they defeat Islam? Yes, they will defeat radical Islam. There's no question about it, because the West is not going to allow them to take over. They're not going to allow it. They have the means, and they have the ways to deliver what they're going to deliver, and they will do it. But it's going to take the world down. Okay, so the point being is that, yeah, you're right in the sense that Islam is going to be squelched.
Yeah.
The fire will be put out.
Yeah.
But the cost. Okay, now this goes back to why is God allowing this to happen? He's allowing it to happen. He's warned us in advance so that we can prepare, so that we don't need to worry about running down to the grocery store to get our groceries. That's why he's done it. That's why he's done it. He wants his people, just like he told Noah, to gather all the food you're going to need to go on the ark. He's telling us in advance so that we can do what we need to do in advance. Okay, next slide. Reality check. What would happen if we had 83 radical Muslims in every state coordinated for a nationwide avalanche of terrorism, i.e. dirty bombs, truck bombs, chemical, biological weapons, etc., which they do believe that they most likely have on American soil. When I say American soil, I mean North American soil, because we're all Americans, right? We're all Americans. Okay, so this is just what we need to understand. Muslim tactics are to attack financial centers, disrupt business, transportation routes, disrupt supplies. That's why the transportation routes. I had someone tell me that in the States, they noticed that they're buying up gas stations as well. Okay, so there's reasons why they might want to buy gasoline stations. Energy power distribution plants are going to be a target to cripple power supplies because they know what hurts, right? So they're targeting the trade center attack was for a purpose. What was the purpose? Did they think it would bring the trade centers were an icon.
Yeah.
And they attacked the icon. They demonstrated something. We could take your nation down. You don't rule anymore. So it's these things that they will attack. They will attack where it hurts the most. It deflates our ego, if you will, or our superiority. Oh my. I don't even want to say anything about what would be a good target. I don't even want to say it. There are some good targets out there. Yeah, they could also go after hospitals, other critical infrastructure, things that we need the most. That's where, that's what they do. We can learn the lessons of history, and we can see when wars actually get developed and full scale, they pull out all the stops about what would be proper to hit and what would be not proper to hit. They go after you with whatever they have, and there will be no distinction between military and civilian. They've already showed that. They're doing that in Yemen and other countries. They don't care after a while whether you're civilian or military.
It's not a random.
Right. How long will it take the U.S. to recover, if it recovers at all? Well, if we understand prophecy, the U.S. will recover. They will recover, but it will look like they won't. That's how bad a shape they're going to be. And what are your plans for when you are living without finances? So the question you asked earlier, it's all we can do to survive today, to pay our rent, to pay our groceries, and so on. What's going to happen when the nation goes down and now you're stuck in the city and you don't have money or finances or food? What are you going to do? Or money to buy your prescriptions? What are you going to do? Okay, devastation in the U.S. Despite the apparent victory in defeating Islam, the toll of global terrorism, nuclear war devastates the United States, knocking it out of world supremacy position and it currently holds. Daniel 7 reveals that. The eagle's wings were plucked off, the large horn was broken. Now, I just want to go into this eagle's wings. Who's following UK politics? They had an election. It was a European election. And it was who's going to represent the UK in Europe, in the European Union. Brexit. That's Nigel Farage, who is the head of the Brexit party that was started about 7 weeks ago. A brand new party started 7 weeks ago. And Nigel Farage, who was instrumental on starting Brexit and getting, he wasn't the beginning of it. Margaret Thatcher, he's echoing She said that we don't want any part of European Union because of all the evil that's come out of it. And I think that they defeated Germany twice, and they're not going to get ruled by Germany. And that's who is calling the shots in the European Union. And it's all part of nationalism and sovereignty, immigration. It's all part of it. Nigel Farage actually traveled with President Trump when President Trump was campaigning for his presidency. Nigel Farage and President Trump are good friends. And he just went over to UK, and Nigel Farage, I watched his show. He's got a show on TV station, and he was really building up the visitation by Trump and the royal visitation and everything, and he was just really ecstatic about how it went, how well it went. So he's moving for Great Britain to come out of the European Union, and there's going to be a vote in October that says what they're going to do. And of course, we've been saying for years that they have to pull out, and now they're on the verge of doing it. And it's going to be very interesting. The UK is divided right down the middle. I think the vote was 51 to 49 when they voted to come out of the UK, or out of the European Union. There's some people that want to take it to another referendum, but Nigel Farage he's sticking to the idea we had a referendum. Let's just fulfill the referendum. And if we fulfill it and we want to have another referendum, that's fine. But let's fulfill, because if you don't fulfill the people's vote on the referendum, what kind of government it is? And that's what he's saying. This is a dictatorship. Theresa May just stepped down because she tried to get it done. She was trying to work a deal. She was trying to get more than what they could get. Long story short, Nigel Farage is on the page that it doesn't matter what we get, we got to get out. That's what we got to get. He doesn't care what we get. They're calling it a no deal. In other words, we just want out. We just want out. So this is where the problem is. They want more than what they're probably going to get, but he's just wants out. So here's the interesting part. Trump has made deals even just last week. He's telling England to get out. He's encouraging them to get out because then they will unite tighter than they ever have before. This is the lion and the eagle's wings. This is what we're looking at. So I can see this as we watch the news. We can see the lion and the eagle are forming. They're in the forming stage. If and when, I say when, England pulls out, they have no choice to make the United States their closest ally. And we can see at that point that all the Anglo-American countries will form tighter alliances. We're talking New Zealand, we're talking Australia, we're talking Canada. The West will be uniting tighter and tighter when this happens. The large horn will be broken. The wing is plucked off in Daniel 7. The large horn broken in Daniel 8, talking about the same events. Daniel 7, verses 2 and through to 3, I saw 4 great beasts come up, one from the sea, each different from the other. The 4 great beasts, when the eagle's wings are plucked off, the way the United Nations is structured, there are 5 Security Council members that are permanent members. They can't be changed. That's the United States, England, France, Soviet Union, Russia, and China. Once the United States goes down, they will no longer be #1 nation. They will be reduced, I believe, to a third world nation. That's why it's important for us to understand this. Look around at the third world nations, and they are starving without the help of the West, and that's what we're going to look like. So we need to prepare for that day. At that point, the 4 remaining Security Council members just happens to be coincidental. I don't think so. The prophecy says that 4 nations will go forward from here on out. 4 nations. Happens to be the lion with the eagle's wings, the bear, leopard, and the dreadful beast. That's made up of a multitude of nations, which we've looked at in other times being the European Union. UN Security Council member, 5 members, which we talked about here. When the U.S. falls from the top position, from the number 1 king, the notable horn, the eagle, which holds up the lion, the 4 other nations seek to take that role. You know that nature hates a vacuum. So when the number 1 power is taken out, these other nations will strive to be that number 1 nation. And we can see that in Daniel 11. You can see how the whole thing plays out. Daniel chapter 11 is really the story of the struggle between these 4 nations for number 1 superpower, because somebody has to lead the pack. And one will come out, we're told who that is. Daniel chapter 7, we can see the transition from Daniel chapter 7 to Revelation chapter 13. Revelation 13, 1 through 3. Paraphrasing, John sees the amalgamation of the same animals that were in Daniel chapter 7 become one beast, and there will be a power that leads that one beast. He's given a mouth speaking great things, and he's allowed to continue for 42 months, 1,260 days, 3.5 years. We know all of this stuff. We've been told all of this stuff.
That's New World Order.
That's New World Order. When these nations come together, they're fighting apart to be number 1. There's a power that rises, called a little horn, rises, unites the whole world under one head. That's really, in a nutshell, who that is. We're going to look at that a little bit as well. Now, with Islam out of the way, the 3rd temple in Jerusalem can be built. This war prepares the way. With Islam out of the way, I can ask the question right now, if Islam was taken out of the way, would they build a temple in Jerusalem? Tomorrow. Tomorrow. There'd be a phone call today and there'd be trucks there tomorrow. Absolutely. So when Islam goes down, there will be a 3rd temple that is going to be prepared. Man and God, and the Sabbath is what unites them.
Y es lo mismo que significa el hombre y Dios y el sábado en el medio. El sábado es ese pacto matrimonial del hombre con Dios.
All I'm doing here is I'm just pointing you to look at these connections. And when I leave and I'm halfway across the ocean, you're going to be able to start studying this out yourself. So we can't miss these parallels. So we have to study for ourselves. Our first study group, and they just told us what they were interested in, and that's what we did. So, and you got a handful of Daniel and Revelation again, but that is exactly what they were after. They wanted to know what all that stuff meant for us today.